Here we go. Jake and Josh are here to analyze the game they love for the team they love. This is another Dolphins podcast. Here's your host, Jake Mendel and Josh Houtz.
Thanks for tuning in to a very, very special edition of another Dolphins podcast because we are celebrating Victory Monday. And to you, my friend Joshua Houtz, to all the Raiders Nation, to Antonio Pierce, I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game.
Yeah, I think we all probably owe him a little bit of an apology. I mean, we see what they're building there. It seems like, the players have bought in, but we all were on here talking I think I said 38-13. So I got the 13 right, but this game was much closer. Yeah, this game was much closer than many of us have expected, but it's the NFL, and we're going to have these games we're going into expecting to win by what was the spread, like 13.5 or something. And it's just going to be a lot tougher than we expect. So, yeah, we weren't familiar with your game, but we're excited to see what you're going to continue to do there in the AFC West.
Yep, don't have to deal with the Raiders anymore, and that's a good thing. The Miami Dolphins defeated the Las Vegas Raiders 20-13, improving to 7-3 on the year. Joshua Houtz, they improved to 5-0 at Hard Rock Stadium. What a way to begin the football Sunday. I got to say, man, it does really make you a little queasy. Adjust your expectations when you hear 13.5 point spread. When you see this is a team that put up 70 points, you think that, hey, 38, 40 points is something you can do all the time. And for some reason, man, we just overlooked that this was a Raiders defense that allows about 200 passing yards per game. I think Tua was the first quarterback to throw for over 300 yards against this Raiders defense. So, our bad. We definitely thought this would be like a Man Campbell situation in Miami. You face that good team. The Dolphins looked a little ugly at times. They looked a little sloppy at times, but at the end of the day, man, it's a dub.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are kind of down. I mean, I have to laugh because right now I think Tua is up for like FedEx Air Player of the Week, but like a lot of Dolphin fans were really down on this performance. And I mean, there were some plays where you'd want back, that interception to Waddle. We'll talk about all that. But Tua Tagovailoa is playing lights out. I'm glad you mentioned him having over 300 plus yards because that was the first quarterback to do that. But like you mentioned at one time, man, it did seem like we were going to be the same old Dolphins, right? I think it was the Devontae Adams scoring that first touchdown. Was that Adams I'm looking at here? It was a Carlson. Adams, yeah, he did.
Yeah, Adams was the only one to score for the Raiders.
Yeah, and that was in that coverage where it looked like they were Holland and Elliott. I don't know what happened. There was miscommunication, but they scored there. And at that point, it's what, 10-7, I guess. And you're sitting there thinking, we're going into this. It's going to be a battle. But the Dolphins pulled it off. And as we'll talk about, that defense, man, is really starting to come together.
I guess the simplest question I have here, Jalen Ramsey, in his 3 games since he returned from his knee injury in the preseason, he's been targeted 16 times. He's allowed 4 receptions, 41 yards, 3 interceptions, a 0.0 passer rating when targeted, and a Pro Football Focus grade of 90.2. Joshua Houtz, I didn't think Jalen Ramsey would be this good. I'm just gonna. This is insane. 2 interceptions on Sunday, 3 on the year. He's allowed 4 receptions. He has 3 interceptions. Dude, like bananas.
Absolutely bananas, and I don't think there's anything wrong with you saying that. I mean, I was getting ready to tweet it out. I just couldn't figure out the right words, but this feels like that same situation with Tyreek Hill, right? We traded for Tyreek Hill. You said there was no way he was going to come here and be – I mean, they're both playing better than we expected, right? You get these 2 superstars and you expect them to be at this level, and then they, show up and they're the perfect leaders and they raise their game to the next level. I mean, you needed someone to make a play in this game, and that first interception, and I mean, you saw him trailing it. He read it all day, cut underneath a Trey Tucker route and got that pick, and then that one to seal the game. I mean, we all see it on the elevator. We're all super stoked about that. It's just crazy that I think at one point in the game, the announcers were like, have they even targeted Jalen Ramsey at all? And then like 2 plays later, it was that interception. It's like, oh man, it's just insane that, again, we got a guy that we're so used to these guys coming to Miami to kind of take a step back and watch their career kind of unravel. And it's just been the complete opposite with Tyreek Hill and now Jalen Ramsey. So absolute superstar, better than we both expected. And it's just absolutely crazy. They got him for Hunter Long and a 3rd round pick.
200 longs, man. That's I'm going to continue to say that to the day I die. You traded 200 longs for 1 Jalen Ramsey. And I love that, man. That's such a great way to put it, where it is like Tyreek Hill, where you were like, okay, you have a really good wide receiver coming in. You don't really understand what that does for the team in general, outside of like Tyreek Hill already having 9 touchdowns. You don't really understand what it does for this team outside of 2 interceptions. And First, Josh, to start off, I mean, this is a very, very healthy looking Jalen Ramsey. His first interception, he put on that little burst that you usually, waste up in the first 2 seconds of a Madden play. He left that in his bag just enough time to, come over the middle and get in front of a slant pass. And then, God, dude, if you gave him 10 attempts to have that interception at the end of the game where AOC just kind of launched the ball into the end zone there, I don't think he's catching that 10 out of 10 times. I wouldn't even give it to him 5 out of 10 times. It was just so insane the way he jumped up in the air. He landed on the ball. The ball did not come loose, anything like that, man. It was just so impressive. But the way I see things operating, you said it, Josh. This was a team that was afraid to throw at Jalen Ramsey. So what they tried doing? They tried throwing at Kader Kohu, and Kader Kohu eviscerated Devontae Adams on a play. I was actually so impressed, just his ability to tackle. It was a short dump off pass where you were trying to get it away from Jalen Ramsey. That didn't work. Then you moved Devontae Adams to the entire other side of the field. You put him on X Island because Jalen Ramsey lines up on the left side of the field. All of a sudden, Devontae Adams catches a little bubble screen, gets blown up by Xavier Howard. The Raiders were forced to eventually throw the ball at Jalen Ramsey, and I think that's what makes this defense so exciting, knowing that teams are going to try to not throw at him, and that's dangerous as well.
Another tweet I threw in my pocket. I'm watching this game and I'm thinking, is there a better, 3 cornerbacks in the NFL than Jalen Ramsey and Kader Kohu? And then you think about that secondary. I mean, again, there was some confusion on that Devontae Adams touchdown, whatever. We'll chalk that up as, but Javon Holland, Deshaun Elliott, they've also been playing out of this world. But I love that you brought up those plays because, I mean, it looked like a mirrored image, right? I think X had that one where he blew up the quick screen, and then Kader Kohu. I mean, we see it all the time out of him. I even think he was lined up on Adams at times and, was got a pass breakup here and there. And it's just so nice to see how this defense looks right now because I think CK put it out there. And I mean, I feel like all of us kind of expect that offense to be, the star attraction despite what they're paying them. But this defense, I mean, that roster, they're paying them a lot of money, but they're going out there and they're playing. I mean, you mentioned Jalen Ramsey X. I mean, can we talk about the guys up front? I mean, Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips. I mean, if Jalen Ramsey had a great day, I mean, Jaelan Phillips also had an interception, right? He had an interception. I think he had 6 tackles. I think it was an interception or 2. Pair of sacks. Yep. I mean, then Bradley Chubb. I mean, every time they need a play, whether it's setting the edge and getting a tackle for loss, pressure on an interception, whatever it is. I mean, those guys are playing out of this world. And the defense, man, they're starting to look like a true juggernaut like we all expected at the beginning of the season.
This defense was so impressive because the Raiders in the second half went punt, interception, punt, downs, interception, interception. The Miami Dolphins entered the day with a -4 turnover differential. And that second half, they had 3 turnovers, and yet they still have a -4 turnover differential. That's just a little fun about the Miami Dolphins this year. But man, the defense just as a whole has been so impressive. And I think my favorite part is because there have been so many times in the past, whether it was a Ryan Tannehill or someone just having to spot start for the Dolphins, when you're getting dragged to the ground and once your back is horizontal and you still try to throw the football and it just goes straight up in the air like Aiden O'Connell did. I forgot who was sacking him at the time. It might have been Chubb. I should have this up. But then O'Connell just throws the ball right in the air to Jaelan Phillips. And I think Phillips ended up getting tackled by his own guy who was tackling AOC on that play. But it was just an overall electric performance for the defense. And it just you keep bringing up the question. This is a defense that has allowed more than 21 points once since week 5. How high is this ceiling? How good is this group going to look? I mean, you can put a little water on this fire by saying it's a rookie quarterback, him having to go on the road. I thought that the Raiders played decently well, but then also, man, you have Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing last year, an absolute stud. And what was this, 14 carries for 39 yards? Just a very solid defense that is continuing to prove that it's just going to be a very consistent unit all the way through the, what remaining 8 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, I had Josh Jacobs in fantasy football, so it definitely, I don't want to say it stung because I'd rather see the Dolphins win any day of the week. But when you have Josh Jacobs in like 4 leagues, you expect them to do something. And Dolphins went out there and just, played very well. I guess the question I have, and I don't know if we want to talk about negatives right now, but I saw the snap count and I was surprised. I think Jerome Baker almost doubled David Long Jr. And we know we talked about Jerome Baker being part of that base defense, but I want to see more David Long out there, right? If we're being honest, I mean, he's playing out of his mind. Another interesting thing with those snap counts was there's not much defensive line rotation. I mean, what you see is what you get. I think Agba had like 7 snaps or something like that. But Yeah, it's just insane, but we need that depth there. But at the end of the day, I'm just excited for what this defense is starting to become, and these different pieces. Even Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, I think he had like 67% of the snaps or something like that, and I felt like you really felt his impact in this one. So, again, Dolphins playing great football. I think they have a sack in the last 6 games, and 2 sacks in at least the last 6 games. Then I think a sack in each of the games this year. So Dolphins defense again getting better. Yes, it was AOC. I love that you call them AOC. That's a perfect name. I know that it was against the Raiders, but you play who's on your schedule, right? And they went out there and they dominated defensively.
And people might hate to hear this, but I mean, the touchdown pass to Devontae Adams, the one bad play the defense gave up. Devontae Adams is paid to be like a top 3 wide receiver, and it's it's kind of unlucky, but at the same time, like he gets paid for people to bounce off him, like you're both like running at each other with these big ass like balloons or balls or something, and you just bounce off of each other. Like he's a monster of a wide receiver, and passing him off in coverage in that zone defense where I think Elliott got caught running backwards. Like you run at Devontae Adams full speed, man. It's a tough matchup, a tough guy to get in the way of. So it happens. I think the Dolphins defense is good enough where they can get away with getting unlucky here once or twice. But man, I think the funnest things to see, I always like seeing when offenses get their slot receivers involved, like Hunter Renfrow got involved with the Raiders, because dude, seeing the number 94 sprinting downfield the other way to come chase wide receivers is one of the most impressive things in the world. We're even seeing Jaelan Phillips do it quite a bit too, which is pretty exciting. But man, that defensive front deserves so much credit, because when you have Christian Wilkins playing so many snaps, I mean, I see Zach Sealer basically unable to talk before a snap because he's just huffing and puffing so much. The fact that they're still out there and giving it 120% on all these plays, man, I wouldn't be able to do it. That is just insane. And the motor on these guys, and they're going to feel a little better. Like they're playing in that hot sun under that Miami sun as well. So when they have to go out and play in some cold games end of the year, they might actually like it a little bit. Like that Buffalo game last year, they probably didn't feel as cold when you're out there for 98% of the plays.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Jaelan Phillips was like working out without his shirt on, showing off his
Yeah.
McCamp muscles. So, it's a testament to how well these guys practice, right? I think Wingfield was saying that Christian Wilkins at the end of every practice like runs from end zone to end zone or something crazy like that. So awesome that these guys go out there and hustle. Their motors never quit. But at the same time, I know you saw the video going around. Jerome Baker kind of just like walking behind Renfrow in that big game. Like he had no interest in making that tackle. So it's a shame Christian Wilkins had to come all the way down the field to make that tackle, because Jerome Baker looked like he straight up gave up on that play.
Do you think it's that simple? Like, and am I giving Baker too much? Like, could there have been something that where like the angle does not give him any credit? But I mean, like,
Renfrow did look like he was getting tripped up, though. I mean, you expect him to trip, and then you come up and try to like put your body weight on him. They're going to penalize you for that. So, I mean, that's probably my theory. You saw Renfrow getting tripped up, thinking he's going to fall down, and he didn't want to get unnecessary roughness or something with the way the NFL is. But that's me trying to give Jerome Baker an excuse. Go home, get out of jail free card.
Did Jerome Baker play with Kiko Alonso?
Damn,
I think so.
Know that. I can't remember. I know him and Raekwon McMillan were boys at Ohio State, but yeah, I can't remember when Kiko Alonso dipped and when Jerome Baker came in.
All I can think of is maybe he didn't want to throw all his body weight around because there was also 4 Dolphins in the area, and because I just remember Kiko Alonso just sprinting at and eviscerating his own teammates just to kind of run through someone, tackling a dude through another dude, but that dude happens to be your teammate. I don't know. It could be very much that he wasn't trying on that play. I just have a hard time seeing the center of this defense who has been on the team for 10 years. Like, is it that? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one, I think.
And for what it's worth, I mean, again, Pro Football Focus, grain of salt, but I think he was the number 2 ranked defensive player out of the Miami Dolphins yesterday. So, yeah, I don't know what happened there, but again, take that with a grain of salt. So, had to throw that out there. But again, man, this defense is looking sick.
To talk about the linebackers, what are you thinking about the Andrew Van Ginkel, David Long? I don't want to call it a power struggle, but it does seem like they like Andrew Van Ginkel in coverage a little bit more. I think, what was it, man? Like the first play of the game, AVG almost had a fumble on the first play, and it was, I think you said it on Twitter, if the Tyreek Hill fumble from 2 weeks ago was a fumble, then this play where it seemed like Michael Mayer was putting the ball in his pocket and turning upfield, he was hit right then and there. That should have been a fumble too, but I mean, I guess we'd probably be more mad at that if the Dolphins lost, but I'm talking in circles. What do you think about this linebacker group and how they're using them?
I think they're better than, I kind of every year I think I come on here and say how that's the position we need to upgrade. And I think they're really starting to come together. I think it's a good problem to have that you have to decide on, is David Long out there? We're going to use Andrew Van Ginkel. And yeah, let's be honest, it seems like Vic Fangio he must love Andrew Van Ginkel. That might be like his favorite player in the NFL, the way he calls him up to come here and the way he's giving him these reps, which are warranted. But yeah, man, I thought for sure that was a fumble. But again, this linebacking core, I'd like to see more Channing Tindall. I'd like to see him work his way out there and prove that he's worth that pick they gave up. But that's not going to happen. So besides from that, man, I think the defense is that middle of the defense is playing much better than maybe we thought heading into this season. And it's a kind of a surprise without David Long being out there for so many snaps.
Jaelan Phillips, 2 sacks. I think we said that's 4 straight games with a sack for him. Bradley Chubb made it to 4 straight games with a sack, but that streak was snapped because Phillips, surprisingly enough, was the only player to sack AOC. Even though the Dolphins were getting a lot of quarterback hits, I think Wilkins had a couple. Phillips finished with 3. So overall, man, just a very impressive performance from this defense. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll talk about an offensive performance that left a little bit to be desired. Joshua Houtz, welcome back. We are here to talk the Miami Dolphins offense. The Dolphins offense was held scoreless in the fourth quarter, finished with 20 points in a win over the Raiders. Lot to be desired about this Miami Dolphins offense, Josh, but at the end of the day, a dub is a dub.
Yeah, I think that's twice now you said it, and you're right. I mean, that's all that matters is that the Dolphins ended up winning this game. I mean, the stats are, if you look at the stats, I mean, Tua did very well with those stats. But I mean, when you're watching the game, again, there were some misses. The Waddle interception, it sounds like there was miscommunication there. There was the fumble where he should have slid early in the game. But overall, I mean, the offense has kind of hitting a bump in the road, right? These last few weeks. I mean, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because you're playing with these backup guards. Your offensive line is playing musical chairs every other week, but you need to see more out of this offense, especially in games when you want to seal the deal. And for me, it has to be that short yardage situation. There's nothing more frustrating than watching the Dolphins try to convert a 3rd or 4th down when, they're in shotgun, right? I mean, they were in shotgun yesterday, and I understand that you have the playmakers, but give the ball to Ingold right up the middle for God's sake. That's all I want. Just give him a fullback dive in the middle. But the offense has hit a point, a bump in the road outside of Tyreek Hill, who's just playing out of his mind.
Paying them the big bucks, right? Like there's the Tyreek Hill button. You need a touchdown here. But the Dolphins were in a tough spot. Lester Cotton was starting at right guard. He had Liam Eichenberg starting at left guard. No, flip those. I think it was Lester Cotton at left guard, Liam Eichenberg starting at right guard. So you are put in that uncomfortable position where those inside runs might not look as clean. And I think kind of a big deal. Please correct me if I'm overreacting here. Not having Durham Smythe seems like a massive, massive deal because they used him a lot as a fullback, I think, just kind of in motion over the middle to run the football behind him. But Josh, I like what you brought up about Alec Ingold because I think the big appeal about this Miami Dolphins, the Mike McDaniel, the Kyle Shanahan offense was they're one of the only offenses to use a fullback. And what made their use of the fullback unique was not only are they solid receivers catching the ball out of the backfield, but they're still fullbacks, right? You can still just line them up and run up the gut with them. I don't think we've seen that from Alec Ingold and just a ground and pound Dolphins offense in so long that I'm curious to think that maybe Mike McDaniel's gone too far and Alec Ingold isn't even seen as like a ground and pound threat anymore because he's just out there to kind of make people forget about, passing the football, even though that's all they do with it. So I don't know if it's just maybe like when you're playing Madden and use the same play too much and they finally pick up on it or what. But I'm a little curious to see why they aren't using Alec Ingold actually as a fullback.
Yeah, well, you're right. That Durham Smythe news hit pretty hard, right? I mean, it was kind of surprising that he was out of this game. And then you mentioned Jaelan Hill had most of the snaps in his absence. He had a fumble, so it would have been a difference maker, right? If Durham Smythe was out there, we would have liked to have him out there. But for me, I guess I just want to see him continue to commit to the run game. That's the biggest thing. I mean, it seems like late in games, they try to get away from it. Obviously, in this one, it was a little bit different, right? Salvon Ahmed, I think, got banged up late. Unfortunately, Achane, the guy we were so stoked for, man, everybody, hyping him up, posting the highlights. He's back. 3 plays, I think he played yesterday, got hurt. So you hope he can come back. But back to the point with Alec Ingold, man, I think there was a time last year where they might have, had to go over to the tackles and act like he was being confused and run it up the gut with Alec Ingold. But why don't you just line up an I formation or something, man? Just let him have a chance to lower his head and bully right behind Connor Williams. We play Madden, right? So we're kind of, I don't know the word, but we're sitting here kind of taking this down to a basic terms. You just try
Dumb
it,
brains.
right? What's the worst that could
Just
happen, man? It's third and it's third and one. Just don't play in shotgun. But like you mentioned, it might be just Mike McDaniel overthinking things. Okay, they're coming out, the box is stacked. They know we're going to run the football. Let's go out there and pass, catch them off guard, and get a big play. So I don't know, man. I want to see more out of this run game because it seems like it's taken a step back over those first few weeks, and then that all kind of trickles down into the rest of the offense. But you're right, man. The banged up offensive line is going to do that. And, you really didn't have Braxton Berrios either. That third target, Robbie Chosen got some catches, though.
Oh, dude, your face is just already just so bright. You're already going to talk about Robbie
I had to
Chosen.
bring that up. Yeah, that was it.
Dude,
that was
he
the
pulled
end of
the
it.
greatest. You had us in the first half, not going to lie. It took 2 days for him to be back on the practice squad. He was called up for the game. And I think that actually played a big role in what the Dolphins were and actually were not unable to do. You had Jalen Waddle get targeted 8 times, Tyreek Hill targeted 11. But I mean, Cedric Wilson Jr. targeted 4 times. You get that. But Alec Ingold, 4 targets. Salvan Ahmed, 3 targets. That doesn't seem like the Miami Dolphins offense that's going to score 70 points. It does seem like they are missing. River Craycraft still getting back into the mix. I don't see him targeted once here. You mentioned it, Braxton Berrios not playing. Durham Smythe, who, unless it's Merrick's children playing Madden, he's not going to go absolutely ballistic, but he can still catch a couple balls, even get that first touchdown of the season. I do wonder if that was maybe the issue. You see it to come right out for the second half. First play, an interception. It seemed like Tua was throwing for answers and he just couldn't find them.
Yeah, that was super frustrating, right? We came in, I think it was a 1-point game or something. It was a close game coming out of the half, and then we're sitting there and they throw that YOLO ball up, and you're like, oh man, what are you doing? So yeah, it was 14-13 going into half, but they sound like there might have been miscommunication there, but you don't want miscommunication in those situations, right? Those are the games that plays like that can cost you late in the season. So something's got to get right. But I do think it's interesting, and I saw someone post on Twitter, but like it seems like they're almost force feeding Tyreek Hill this year, right? Like they're trying to get that 2,000 yards or something almost, or whatever. But you have Tyreek Hill on your roster. You're going to force feed him targets. I just wish we'd see Jalen Waddle get more involved than we have in recent weeks, and maybe we need that third option back. I mean, River Craycraft, he didn't have his touchdown, right? He used to always get a touchdown every game. Braxton Berrios out. So if Robbie Chosen's catching 2 passes after they just cut you, put you on the practice squad, and had to call you back up, I mean, the offense is thin there. So hopefully that we can get healthy enough for Friday. But it does sound like Mike McDaniel said a lot of those guys that were questionable were out for this past game against the Raiders might not be able to play on Friday. So we'll keep that in the back of our mind as the week goes on.
Where would you draw the line of like, okay, we got to stop force feeding Tyreek Hill? Because if he catches 10 of 11 targets for 146 yards and a touchdown, I don't know if I'm really going to say that that's the case. But you see the inefficiencies elsewhere. Why does Jalen Waddle get targeted 8 times and only catch 4 of them for 55 yards? I think that is a better question of maybe if you want to word the take, why is Tyreek Hill getting all the better routes? How about let's go with that one. Speaking to that though, Josh, I think the Dolphins should take a break from bubble screens for a little bit, because I think that was another situation we saw with the short yardage situations. It does kind of speak to that too, where man, opposing defenses, and like I joke about it, and now I feel like I'm like screaming at nobody here, because the joke is that you pressure Tyreek Hill, you play physical with him at the line, and all of a sudden he can't do anything. But the Dolphins actually are playing that way. Like they don't know what to do when they're playing physical at the line because they keep giving him these bubble screens. I can't say that completely because he had 10 receptions for 146 yards, but you kind of get what I'm saying, where I feel like you see the defense is doing the cliche thing, and the Dolphins at times are feeding into that exact cliche thing to kind of prove it right in like a strange roundabout way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I do agree with you. If Tyreek Hill's catching 10 balls for 146 yards, and I mean, that one he caught, he plucked that thing out of air, and I thought for sure he was going to get tackled. And he just, how fast, I mean, he's so damn fast. I can't wait to see next gen stats. I bet that he's the fastest guy of the week and all season long or whatever it was. But that was just incredible speed for him to blow past them. You mentioned them kind of feeling like they don't know what to do when these defenses are throwing them off their game. I believe it was Barry Jackson tweeted out, and it was a quote from Hill. We have been, or maybe it was McDaniel. McDaniel spoke to teams continuing to play a lot of 2 deep safeties. But Hill said, we have been seeing a bunch of unusual things, and they haven't been able to adapt to that. And if they're playing 2 high safeties and you don't know how to adapt, I mean, those are the things you got to figure out at this point in the season, right? I mean, that was the stuff you should have kind of maybe learned during the bye week, you would have hoped. But we'll see the way defense continue to game plan. When they do take away Tyreek Hill, then you just need anybody to step up, right? I just want to see more from Jalen Waddle. I guess that's it. We talked about it week after week, and I think it has a lot to do with the game planning and the way the offense is going and getting the ball out quick. But Jalen Waddle is a top 10 receiver, and he's just not putting up those same numbers this year. But it's probably a lot to do with injury and things like that.
Speaking to injuries, Josh, we actually got to see Jalen Waddle get all the good routes in the second quarter. Tyreek Hill left the game with a hand injury. He came back and was awesome after having a wrap. But I mean, this was an absolute blast to see the Tua and Waddle show just absolutely take off. Tua to Waddle, 9 yards. Tua to Waddle, 12 yards, 15 yards. Robbie Chosen, 9 yards. Alec Ingold getting involved, and then it ended with the Salvon Ahmed touchdown pass, which it was an absolute awesome play call by Mike McDaniel. So we did see Jalen Waddle get involved, and that was most of his receptions on a single drive. So I do agree with you that this offense needs more Jalen Waddle, and I think if you can have that consistent third target on the field, but man, Queasy meter's a little higher on someone like Braxton Berrios, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I still feel like Braxton Berrios had some critical third down catches earlier in the year.
I mean, like if he's just injured, like about playing on Friday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
like
yeah, Queasy meter. Yeah, Queasy. Basically on Jets revenge game. I don't know that he'll be out there, but that's based off what Mike McDaniel said on a Monday. So anything could happen. But I mean, we're talking about Waddle and Hill. I mean, it's just crazy that I'm looking at now. I think Tyreek Hill was the first player since 1966 to have over 1,200 yards this part of the season, which is just absolutely absurd. So he's on pace for that 2K, I think. But we'll see, man. I do want to see more out of this offense. I thought you were going to ask me out my Queasy meter on this offense. Like, it's not crazy, right? They kind of spoiled us with those 70 points, but we do see them kind of hitting a couple bumps in the road. It's kind of like when you're going to the toll and you hit those, when you're going to the toll window and you hit the and it like slows your car down. Like, that's kind of what we're doing. We got to get through that toll and to the Super Bowl. We'll go with that. That's kind of cool, I guess.
And think about it, man. No team does it for 17 straight weeks. Like it is, there are the balances and shifts in power. It's very impressive that the Dolphins defense is able to kind of get them through these growing pains. I do think that they're going to come out the other side of this like they started to last year before Tua suffered that concussion against the Packers. So that will be an interesting development. I'm not super concerned about the offense. It was nice to see that, Raheem Mostert was backed into crazy type of action because Devon Achane suffered the injury early. To my surprise, and to sound like a complete big dumb fool, Jeff Wilson just healthy scratch from the game, and then you had Salvon Ahmed getting involved. But overall, man, I think the rushing game is going to help out a little bit more as you start to get, Robert Hunt back involved. And even if you let Liam Eichenberg get comfortable at one of the guard positions or something like that, I think you'll start to see that group look and feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, the Raiders had a pretty solid defense. I mean, again, 2 through for the most yards they've had all season. And you got to give your hat tip to Austin Jackson, right? Going against Max Crosby, he absolutely looks like a different man out there. I think that it's just crazy, his blow up in this contract season. So I just want to see us come out that other side, Jake, because we feel like we can. We know where we're at right now as the Miami Dolphins team, but no one should have expected to go through this year dropping 50, 60 points and not having the defense have to step up in critical situations. I mean, that's what they're getting paid for. That's the way the NFL works, right? 1 week it's going to be offense, 1 week it's going to be defense, and the entire NFL should be scared to death when it's the offense and defense complementing each other.
And Joshua Houtz, we could not take off without talking about some of the bad news, and that includes Devon Achane re-suffering a knee injury, just plays into his return for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and I mean, it was gut-wrenching. I mean, we all play fantasy football, so that aside, I mean, it's just the most heartbreaking thing to see that your star – I say star, it's only been a few games, right? But, I mean, 12-point whatever yards per carry, top 10 in rushing after missing, half the season. I mean, we all were so happy for him to come back, and it definitely, took some wind out of your sail. But I guess my question is, Jake, I mean, he's what? Is he like – he's 6'9", I think, and he weighs –
6'9". Nice.
If he was 6'9", we would not have these problems at all. He's 5'9". He weighs 188 pounds. I mean, is this something that maybe we should be concerned about, him not being able to take the beating that comes with the NFL game? I mean, he looks like an absolute stud out there. He's breaking tackles. He's making plays, but he was banged up with the knee injury earlier in the year. Is this just that him re-aggravating that, or is this something that we might have to keep an eye on as his career progresses?
It's 1,000% a concern until it isn't. Until you can go out there and play 3-4 games, then you start to feel better about it. Until then, it's going to be all eyes like every single time he gets tackled. And it could be something like, hey, he's smaller. Hey, he does need to learn how to get tackled a little differently to kind of protect himself, especially being a running back. He did run for over 1,000 yards in the SEC, and those were some pretty big guys there. Of course, the NFL is a different animal. There is some concern. It's a little upsetting, but Josh, I think Achan was campaigning to come back in the game, and it was Mike McDaniel's decision to hold him out, be safe with it. And I think McDaniel does trust someone like Raheem Mostert so much to get 90% of the carries where he can do that. And I guess the biggest question McDaniel's going to get asked maybe 40 times before Friday is Achan going to be healthy enough to play Friday?
Yeah, Cam Wolf's going to be all over that. I think he might have Devon Achan in fantasy, but I think don't remember who said it, but I believe there was a report that if Raheem Mostert went down or something would have happened there, Devon Achan could have came back in the game. So hopefully he's cleared, for this weekend. But again, it sounds like it's something to keep an eye on, and it is week to week. But dude, just absolute heart shot to the heart, I would say. I mean, 3 plays into the game. I mean, that's probably how Jets fans feel, though, right?
Dude, I don't know what Jets fans feel anymore. We gotta mention that for a minute too.
Tim Boyle?
The Jets got blown away by the Bills. What was it? 32-6, I believe it was. There was a play where Zach Wilson was jogging out into the field and he just fell. That was a very impressive athletic play from someone in the Professional Football League.
Wasn't he compared to like Pat Mahomes too? And he can't even like run backwards, trot backwards, like wild stuff, man.
He can't jog backwards, and Patrick Mahomes is throwing behind his back. It's crazy those comparisons people were making. But Josh, are you afraid about facing Tim Boyle at all?
I'm not. I mean, I don't care if it's him, Trevor Siemian, or Zach Wilson. It was funny though during this game. I guess as it progressed, the Dolphin fans were coming in with high hopes that they were just gonna crap stomp the Raiders. I was getting a lot of people in my mentions. If this is how the Dolphins are gonna play, they're gonna lose next week, and that was before the Jets game was even on. I'm just thinking, bro, they still don't have a quarterback. I mean, I don't think that no matter what the Dolphins were doing against the Raiders is any indication that the Jets are going to be a tougher battle, but they are division rivals. So we'll see. We know Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel have a history. I'm sure they know one another, and they want to go out there and show up one another. So it'll be interesting. Black Friday game. What is it, 3:00, Jake? I mean, that's wild stuff, yeah. But we'll all be there. We're all stoked, and we can't leave without bringing up Hard Knocks, right, Jake?
Oh, yeah. We are – one night? Today's Monday. You'll be listening to
Tomorrow,
Tuesday morning. So, yeah, later tonight, you'll be listening to the inaugural episode of In-Season Hard Knocks with the Miami Dolphins. Josh, we already hear it's going to be a lot of Tua cornrow talk, and we even saw it with Robbie Chosen. That's probably why they brought back Robbie Chosen, because he's on the first episode of Hard Knocks. It's like we can't ruin the vibes.
No, not at all. But I mean, I kind of learned something there. I didn't know that it was to keep the hairs down while they wore like the do-rag on their head. So I actually learned something in that little teaser trailer. But I mean, it's going to be exciting to watch this, right? To see the way this team interacts off the field, I guess, and just to see, what kind of culture that Mike McDaniel's building. But yeah, man, I like that teaser trailer, and I'm glad they brought Robbie Chosen back.
20-13, the Miami Dolphins beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Do you wish they won, or are you happy they won a bad game, or do you wish they lost a good game?
I just want to win. I'm at the age where I just want them to win. I just want to get to the playoffs. I don't care how it happens. I don't care about style points. People are ragging on Tua today. It don't matter to me, man. A win's a win, and we got a short week ahead against the Jets.
Exactly, and there are going to be games that aren't always pretty, and you did not fall for the trap, because there have been people to say that, like, hey, well, let's go lose a good game instead of winning a bad game. That's something to keep in mind too, man. It's a long season, but the Miami Dolphins came away with a 20-13 win. We are on to New York, and that is all the time we have on another Dolphins podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to the show. We will be back tomorrow with some injury updates, maybe some Hard Knock recap, but until then, fins up.
Fins up.